Well, this was easy for me, like coming home.
Coming from England, Nanning, you can see it's developing so quickly. There's nowhere in England where you can see such rapid construction and development. On the scale in Nanning, it's quite incredible.
What do you guys do in your spare time when you're not studying, which I know you do a lot of studying because you're medical students?
Roaming here and there.
For example?
Roaming.
Roaming?
Roaming. Chit-chatting.
Chit-chatting? Do you go outside and have a look into the city and around?
Buddha temple we went to.
Oh, really? Nice.
Shopping.
So, shopping, of course. One more dance. One more dance.
Like this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With its bright lights and even brighter future, the people of Nanjing can sit back on the comfort of Nanjing's beautiful environment with the full confidence that Nanjing is on the right track to developing into South China's economic hub.
Well, that wraps up our show for today, and I hope, like myself, you enjoyed meeting the friendly, the funny, and the funky folk of Nanjing and hearing their stories about Nanjing life. And if there's any truth to the expression, build it and they will come, all you have to do is look behind me to know we can expect great things from Nanjing in the future.
In the world's key oil route, the Strait of Hormuz, but says it does not intend to close off the route. Demanding answers, Turkey protest against military airstrike near a village which killed dozens of civilians. Cooling down, the blaze lasting over 20 hours. The Russian nuclear Yekaterinburg is finally put out, extinguishing fears of radiation leak. And reaching the limit, the Obama administration delays a request to increase the U.S. debt ceiling, provoking debates on the U.S. financial crisis. Hello and welcome from Beijing. You're watching CCTV News. I'm Mang. Iran says it will fire long-range missiles on Saturday as part of military exercises in the Persian Gulf. The announcement on Friday was made on the heels of heightened tensions between Iran and Western powers over Tehran's threat to block oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. The semi-official Fars news agency quoted Iranian Admiral Mohammad Mousavi as saying the Navy will test several kinds of missiles during the final phase of the drill that began on December 24th. The test firing aims to prepare the Navy for confronting an enemy in any war situation. Earlier this week, Tehran threatened to block the entrance to the Persian Gulf if Western powers imposed sanctions targeting its oil exports. Such a move would add to several rounds of sanctions already imposed on Iran over its controversial nuclear program. The U.S. had warned interfering with the passage of vessels through the Strait of Hormuz would not be tolerated. As Iran continues its major naval drills in its southern waters, Iranian Navy Commander Rear Admiral Habibullah Sarari says that it is not the Islamic Republic's intention to close the Strait of Hormuz. Sarari says although Iran could readily close the strait, its intention is only to bring stability and security to the region and to show everyone that Iran can provide the security for the region without resorting to powers from outside. Sarari also said the presence of foreign navies in the region causes regional insecurity, and he emphasized that Iran does not need the presence of non-regional powers. Turning to Syria now, in the largest protest Syria has seen in months, hundreds of thousands of people have taken to the streets to show an Arab League observer mission their defiance. Civil rights activists say forces loyal to President al-Assad killed at least 22 people at his protests. Jenny Lin has that.
Hundreds of thousands of anti-government protesters in the streets in towns and cities across Syria on Friday. They were aiming to show Arab League monitors the level of popular dissent as the observer mission continues to evaluate whether Damascus is abiding by its promised measures of reform. Activists said over a dozen people died as clashes erupted and security forces used tear gas to disperse protesters in some of the largest protests seen in months against President Bashar al-Assad. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 250,000 people were on the streets of Idlib after Friday prayers. Activists in Hama and the Damascus suburb of Douma said tens of thousands of people were protesting. The Observatory said protesters hurled stones at security forces in Duma. Over 20 protesters were injured. Assad has signed up to an Arab League plan for a verifiable withdrawal of his heavy weaponry and army from turbulent Syrian cities. The Arab League mission has met with strong skepticism from the outset over its makeup, its small numbers, its reliance on Syrian government logistics, and an initial assessment by its Sudanese chief that the situation was reassuring, before quickly backtracking on the comment. The monitoring team encountered a range of problems, from hostility when they turn up under armed escort to random gunfire and communications breakdowns. Jenny Lin, CCTV.
Staying in Syria, the head of the country's opposition's armed rebels has ordered a stop to all attacks on state security forces during a fact-finding visit by Arab League monitors. The presence of the observer team has re-energized anti-government protests, with tens of thousands turning out this week in places the observers are expected to visit. Su Yuting has that.
The violence continues in Syria's western city of Homs, despite the arrival of the Arab League observer team. The broken glass and bullet-ridden walls tell their own story. The observers began their mission in Syria on Tuesday amid international contention over how effective it would be. The head of the team has already announced that he sees nothing frightening in Homs. In a statement on Thursday, Louis Hussein, the leader of the Building a Syrian State movement, said the government was preventing the media from fully reporting the situation, despite an Arab League condition to allow unrestricted media access.
We would be very happy if Homs was fine, but the observers should conduct longer investigations in every block of the province before issuing an accurate assessment.
Before it began, the mission was downsized 500 to 100 and shortened to a month, following negotiations between the Syrian government and the Arab League. Hussein thinks the number are not enough to properly assess the situation. He's called all parties in the country to help the mission complete its tasks.
The mission is doomed to fail if the Syrian opposition, the government and the people are not cooperative. I hope all parties can help coordinate the mission for our common interests.
The Arab League observers are in Syria to find out whether government forces have curbed violence against the protesters. But the presence of outside monitors has reinvigorated protesters to take to the streets once again after a month of demonstrations, during which they've been met by bullets and tanks. Su Yuting, CCTV.
Turning our attention to Yemen now, tens of thousands of Yemenis held demonstrations around the country Friday to demand their longtime president face trial for the killing of hundreds of unarmed protesters. Friday's gathering comes as President Ali Abdullah is due to hand over power to his deputy in exchange for immunity from prosecution. The power transfer deal was brokered by Gulf Arab nations and supported by the United States. Many protesters have rejected the deal because it doesn't include far-reaching political changes or allow for Salah to be tried. Meanwhile, a few thousand Salah supporters held a counter-rally in the capital, calling the power transfer deal unconstitutional. Turkish Kurds have been venting their anger against a botched military airstrike near a Kurdish village close to the border with Iraq. The attack took place on Wednesday night, killing 35 civilians. In Istanbul, ethnic Kurds protested throughout Friday, with numbers reaching more than 1,000. The government promised a full inquiry into the airstrikes, which resulted in one of the highest single-day civilian death tolls in the long-standing conflict between the Turkish state and Kurdish rebels. Even before the last violence, the government campaign to reconcile with Kurds by granting them more rights had stalled amid a surge in fighting this year. A car bomb has exploded outside the home of a local politician in southwest Pakistan, killing at least 15 people and wounding more than 20 others. The powerful blast, which took place Friday evening in an upscale neighborhood in Quetta, targeted Shafiq Mangal, the son of a former chief minister of Balochistan province. Mangal escaped the attack. The blast also severely damaged several houses and a dozen cars nearby. Police later defused 2 other bombs planted near the house of Mangal. A local separatist group, Balochistan Liberation Army, claimed responsibility for the violence, saying it was a suicide bombing attack. In Nigeria, gunmen have shot dead 3 members of a cleric's family in the northeastern city of Peru. At the same time, a hospital worker says another person has died from the Christmas bomb attacks in central Mandala by radical Muslim group. This raises the death toll to 42. Bomb blasts were also reported in Maiduguri on Friday, but officials said there was no casualties and they denied reports the blast took place near mosques. The inter-ethnic clashes in the South Sudanese state of Jonglei is intensifying. The UN's deputy envoy for South Sudan, Liz Grand, says the UN had to suspend military and aid plans after reports of deteriorating security in affected areas.
The exact numbers of displaced, but it's probably well over 20,000. And as I said, we have information now that the people who are in Pibor have also fled. I think we have to expect that the number of people that are in the bush that have their lives and looking for safety is going to be in the high tens of thousands.
While wrapping up the not-so-smooth year of 2011, the South Korean Unification Ministry has announced that its main focus next year is to monitor the Korean Peninsula. It will be looking out for changes following the death of DPRK leader Kim Jong-il, but DPRK broadcasters have informed the world that there will be no change in the country. Liu Wenwen has that.
Neighbors but rivals. South Korean Unification Ministry spokesman Choi Bo-seong said the Korean Peninsula is now in a state of growing mobility in the aftermath of Kim Jong-il's death.
As DPRK's top leader has died, the mobility in the area has heightened. Our ministry's main focus next year is to closely monitor changes and deal with any changes flexibly, promptly, and with initiative based on our policy.
On the other side, DPRK announced on Friday that South Korea and other nations should not expect any change from the country's new leadership. In a move dampening any hopes of a change in foreign policy, DPRK's state media reported that defense officials say that the country will never negotiate with South Korean President Lee Myung-bak or his perpetrators.
As we have already announced, we will never be associated with Lee Myung-bak's government. It's a disgrace for the innocent and good people of DPRK to be associated with Lee Myung-bak's government, who are politically ignorant, unethical, and who have no basic human mental set. Our military and our people's bloody tears will follow the puppet traitor until the end, and it will form a vengeful fire which will burn up, leaving nothing.
Its National Defense Commission also called Seoul's decision unforgivable for allowing only 2 non-official delegations to pay respect to Kim Jong-il's memorial service. In 2012, how the relationship between the two countries will develop remains a pounding question. CCTV.
We inspire each other. Grow together. ICBC, exclusive media partner of CCTV News.
Of Dragon Supreme Quality. Oolong Soda Water by Imperial Dragon International.
Same speed at different latitudes. Consistent